It's fun. It's wild. It's Dad's Gone Crypto.
Welcome, guys, to Dad's Gone Crypto. And one of the hot topics is how to create an NFT project. What are the steps? What is some guidance? What are some pitfalls? What are things you should be looking out for? It can be rough to create. There's a lot of things that you need to take into account. And today we're going to share you with a list to get you on your journey to creating your beautiful collection, and hopefully that collection turns into something fruitful. Just remember, if you are creating a collection, hook us up, and don't forget to give us a few NFTs there.
Excellent.
Now, let's take building an NFT project, right? It's something relatable because you'll see it's simmering down and now in a bear market, but it will go supernova again, in the next couple of months to a year. NFTs are here to stay, right? Once people solve the utility and creating value for the community, real value, right? It's here to stay, right? So it's still in its infant stages. It's growing. People trying to understand it. I think the music aspect is great. When it goes into games, you can get a skin, right? Getting a Fortnite skin that you can now sell it on the market, and that's a transaction that happens. To take your Fortnite skin and move it to another platform or another game, and you still have your outfit, that is, I think, where it's really going to go supernova, because gaming is obviously one of the biggest things in the world.
I think NFTs are going to be crazy for the gaming industry.
Exactly. So Ryan, tell me, building an NFT project, where do you start?
So I mean, if you're starting an NFT project, the first thing you really got to do, you need an idea, right? So you really gotta come up with what's that big idea. And I guess when you're trying to figure out what that idea, when you're trying to formulate that idea, you really want to think about what problem are you trying to solve, right? So is it a real world problem? Is there a need for an NFT to, who knows? You want to track the purchase of a vehicle, maybe, I don't know. So you're going to start an NFT for your vehicle, for your company. Or is it something within crypto? Are you building something that you're going to give some utility to a project, right? So you want to just build, maybe it starts out as a regular profile picture type NFT, but you're going to build a community around that, and kind of like the Bored Ape Yacht Club, right? They started with a picture and built this absolutely insanely huge community, and then each of their community members are building out different companies based on it. So you really want to kind of narrow it down, what problem you're trying to solve. Then you want to really make a list of your problems you're trying to solve, then make a list of your goals, right? Try to figure out what are your goals for your NFT project. What is it to make money? Is it that's one thing that I'm sure a lot of people are doing it for. Yeah. But at the same time, it could be for charity. It could be for just about anything, but you really need to solidify those goals, figure out what they are. And I'm sure you're going to have some that are, fluid, but at the same time, figure out what your goals are. And when you're figuring out those goals and what it is that you're trying to achieve, you really need to do a little self-searching there and make sure that it's worth that time and effort, because an NFT project, it's a lot of work. You can just throw together some nonsense and put it out there and really quickly, but most likely that's not going to take off. If you really want something that's going to work, you really want something that's going to take off and build like a real big community around it, it's going to take a lot of time. It's going to take a lot of effort. So you really got to sit there, think about what goals you're trying to achieve, and is it worth the time and effort?
Exactly. And the strangest opportunities come. I was sitting at a poker game, just having some fun with the boys, and one of the guys at the table was a real estater, and he has a franchise model, and also a very big franchise model of real estate. So he provides all the legal, the interactions. They just go find and hunt for the business. He takes a small percentage. They technically self-employed. So he wanted to find a way. He says, could an NFT help me if they purchase, if I gift them an NFT because they bought into the franchise and that's valued at, 10% of the business or 5% of the business, right? Could that NFT allow for future rewards, right? Could it solidify? I'm like, it surely can, right? So now here's a real world person in real estate trying to give back to his real estate as an incentive bonus to incentivize them if they reach certain targets that they'll get rewarded in maybe the core business, which ordinarily that he wouldn't have to give them anything, but because they, like, let's say 5 years they've owned the NFT and they've reached targets of X and they get awarded 3 NFTs. Those 3 NFTs is an incentive bonus to Mauritius or the Seychelles, things like that, right? What problem is he trying to solve? Well, he wants them to work harder, get more leads. He wants them to reach goals. So he's incentivizing them to get more business. But wait a minute, he makes more money. Tax write-off, send them to Mauritius, right? All expenses paid. It's a win-win situation. And that's the power of an NFT. But like Ryan said, you got to have goals. You can be an artist, an up-and-coming artist that can do digital art, or you could do your real-world painting, turn it into a digital frame, and upload it as a once-off Rarible, right? And you can go to rarible.com to see those type of things. And you're like, oh, this is interesting art. This resonates with me. It's a one-of-one. That means no one else can create this or edit it in any way. It's mine, and I've got a digital print on there. And over time, if that artist starts to make greater pieces, that piece might be, worth, 2 or 3 or 5 ETH later down the line. So you can start collecting them when they're young, and then when they mature, there's potentially, what you could do over there. The second important thing is finding like-minded people, right? Remember, all right, you're giving up family time because remember, side hustle, right? So there's no ways you can commit to a full NFT project in its entirety unless you've got enough money, all right? So you got to understand that you got wives to deal with, you got kids to deal with. We're recording at different time zones, so sometimes it's early morning. Ryan gets up at 5 o'clock to have a podcast. Sometimes I'm like 11:30 at night or 12. My eyes are like this because it's so late, and I just had a full day of work, and now I've got to do podcasting. So there's a lot of things, and the people you get in bed with, right? You got to like them, right? And you got to be able to communicate with them, and I think that's the important part. Are we on the same mission? Do we have the same goals? We don't have to be the same people, right? But it's important that we share the common thing that we want better for our families. We want to make it into crypto. We want to change our status quo. Doesn't matter what their status quo is. You might be a millionaire. You want to be a billionaire. There's still a status quo, right? But you got to find like-minded people. And I think in our space, we were fortunate to find like-minded people, wanting to build the podcast, right? So it was easier for us to transition into the space as opposed to 3 random strangers.
Yeah, for sure. Probably then the the most important part of all this probably is just to start it, right? I mean, if you can make all the plans in the world and get everything, absolutely perfect, get everything listed out, this is what we're going to do. But if you don't actually start it, it's never going to do anything. So you just, I think probably the biggest point, just get started. Sure, get all your goals, get everything in order, but then start the project. Start putting your time and energy into it. You can always pivot and go along with changes as they come up. But just get the skin in the game, get the thing started. I think is probably that's a huge point to be made.
You don't have the recipe, right? If you had the recipe, the entire recipe, right? You would make more money advising projects, right, than building them, right? So that's the next status up. So, like Ryan says, you got to start, and as you start your journey, and you'll understand this in most businesses, that what you thought you would end up doing is actually far from it. But it doesn't mean you're not as successful, right? We would never have thought of starting a podcast if we didn't start on our journeys, 2-3 years ago, right? In the space that we were creating, we're like. It's like you said 3 years ago, let's start a podcast. It's like, But our journey has led us to this where it makes sense, all right. And we want to create something bigger and better, right? So it's very important. Just start. We've probably changed about a dozen times in everything that we've done, right? And it's just about having the right people that can communicate, and it's a give and take. You know, I don't always get my way. I'm like, come on, guys. It's like, but then the voice of reason comes in. You're like, but what about from this angle? You're seeing the apple from a different angle. You're like, oh, wait a minute. You're actually right. You know, it's still an apple, but I'm not seeing it from this perspective. And I'm like, yeah, okay, let's do this and that, and we can pivot and change. And I think that's how relationships and projects need to. But it doesn't happen unless you start. The fourth thing is start thinking about a crypto lawyer, right? They are expensive, but remember, you're going down a path, right? You haven't thought about, well, we need to start a company. Do we need to start a company? We got tax. What about tax? So there's so many variables that could mess up your project down the line. You got a finished product. Now it's a bull market. You got to launch, but you haven't done your due diligence, right? You haven't figured things out. How are we supposed to communicate? What are our rules of engagement? What is our memorandum of associations, right? How do we play nicely on the playground, right? We go to a playground in any restaurant, right? There's rules. Your kid can't just take his clothes off and start running around naked. I have tried that. I got security came very fast. But what I'm saying is, not on the children's playground. I'm talking about crypto. But what I'm saying is, you have to have rules. Otherwise, you have multiple people running in all different directions, and they think that's right. And then it's just pure chaos, right? So that's where you bring a lawyer in. Like, hey, Mr. Lawyer, right, what do I do? How do you do this? Pull on that. And a great guy is BitGrateful, all right? So at BITGRATEFUL, Jono, he's done a lot of stuff for us. He is an expert in this field. He's a traditional lawyer, but also a crypto lawyer. So he knows about setting up things. He knows about protecting businesses. He knows. And also, he's an NFT connoisseur. So he loves NFT art. So if you follow him, you'll get inspired by some of the stuff he does. And I'm learning every day he posts. And I give him a bit of slack every now and again. But yeah.
So yeah, the next couple things I could say, like maybe 5 and 6 on our little list here is, when you're setting up a project, you need to manage it somehow, right? And it goes back to that list building kind of idea. So get like an online project management tool. There's a bunch of them out there. Trello, Basecamp. We personally use Basecamp, and it's run really well for us. It's keeps everything organized, and we can communicate back and forth within there. It's got its own little chat bot. Yeah, all kinds of notifications when we're forgetting things. It sets the calendar and makes sure that we're staying on track. I think that's important. And at the same time, going along with that, get somebody to manage it, right? So you kind of need an internal project manager to manage all the tasks and the people. So so that you can use something like that, Trello or Basecamp, you can utilize that better if you have somebody that's actually assigned to keep everybody organized and keep the whole thing running properly.
So basically, it's a project management tool that allows you to keep on track, because you need to know what your teammates are doing, right? Because you don't physically see them and they're not next to you, so you don't know if they're fulfilling the tasks. At least on the boards, you can see they're busy with this, almost completed. So you don't have to harass them saying, where's my stuff? So often people just like, I trust you. And we've had many people work with us, and we've waited weeks and weeks and promises and delays. And then they're like, yeah, I understand. And then when they give you the stuff, it's like, it's nowhere near what you expected. So at least it takes the frustration out. Remember, building something should be fun, right? And if you set it up properly, like Ryan has said, by these project management tools, you take out the frustration side. There still will be frustration, trust me on this, but you take out the max pain frustration. Absolutely. And your manageable frustration. So it works nicely. And then, of course, your quick scrums, right? So once a week or twice a week, you step up, say, hey, what are you busy with? Cool. Are we on track? By the way, Sean, you forgot to do this. I'm like, sorry. Just put a reminder. Get it done by Tuesday. So the project manager keeps everybody on track. Also, guys, remember, you got to build out your project, and it has to have a roadmap, right? A roadmap means we start somewhere, we end. Well, we don't really end unless it's an ending project. It does, but ultimately it's the next phase 1, phase 2. So a roadmap says to your audience, I'm busy with this, I'm moving on to that, and I'm on a journey. do you want to come on the journey with me? And if you do, because you're intrigued with what I'm doing and you see the potential, right, or just a fun ride, right, cool, then like, yeah, all right. And then you got to hit your milestones, right? So every time you promise something, be careful, because you can't just put everything you want to do there, because it doesn't work like that. Just basic points of where you want to go, and when you hit it, hit your markers and say you've achieved this, so that they're on the journey with you. You're communicating back, very importantly, to your audience, and you're building trust, and you're building community, and you're bringing more people in. And then projectnomics, projectnomics. I've kind of coined that little phrase, because it's about setting up your different compartments within the project and making sure they also flow, so that everybody's kept accountable, and the project is moving forward.
Yeah, makes sense. And kind of the next step beyond that, so you've got your roadmap, you've got everything laid out. Now you got to put it into something, right? You've got to lay that out so people know what you're doing. So put it in, build yourself out a pitch deck, a light paper. Your pitch deck is basically your whole roadmap and everything that you're doing with the project in somewhat of a condensed form, right? So that you can go out there and present it. If in fact you're going to present this, your project to investors, and that kind of thing. I mean, even if you're not, it's good to have a pitch deck just to, for your community members, so they understand what it is that you're building in a fast format, basically. And then kind of your light paper or white paper, that's kind of the more advanced version, right? So you want to build out you're basically explaining your entire project within that light paper, and telling your audience as well as potential investors exactly what your project is about, what you want to do with your project, and where you want to go in the future. So you're trying to sell your story and your vision with those papers. So you really want to put a lot of time and effort into that pitch deck and light paper if you're really looking for outside investments on this kind of thing.
So your pitch deck is kind of like your elevator pitch. They say, what's your project about? You don't give them the light paper. The light paper is the very long version, all the details. There should be nothing left out, right? So that's kind of like, I'm interested because you've given me a 30-second elevator pitch. I like what I'm hearing, but I want to know more. Send them the light paper. Then some reading, it's like 30 pages or more, boom, boom, boom. And you're like, shit, these guys are onto something. So that's why it's important to have those two.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. And then reaching out to experts in the space and asking for advice. You do not have all the answers. I don't care who you are. All right. And there's so much technology being evolving in the space that sometimes you're trying to solve a problem in your project that you wanted to do something like, to say that your NFT, that's a static JPEG picture, digital picture, but you want it to morph over time. Well, you're like, okay, how do I do that? It's like, I understand the basics, right? But I don't understand how to burn and create. Think about mutants. Broad Ape Mutants, is that right?
Bored Ape.
Bored Ape.
Yeah, and Mutant Ape Yacht Club, right?
Mutant Ape Yacht Club. Sorry, I like tongue twister. So they started with something, and then they had to get the serum, and they put the serum, and then it morphed into that. You're like, all right, we want to create that, but we've got no clue, right? So then what do? You reach out to experts and you see if it's viable. Do you have the budget for it? Do you have the team for it? Do you have the expertise? And you're like, oh, it might just be out of our pay grade right now, but maybe the next NFT project. So you come back and you say, let's refocus on this. Let's get a quality project because the goal that we want to achieve will still be in a line, right? But if you want to go down that route, you got to reach out to experts in this space.
Yeah, absolutely. And probably the next step is, you got to set up social media, right? You got to set up all your social channels, your Twitter, your Discord, your Telegram. There's so many social media aspects that go along with an NFT project, and probably the most difficult one is Discord. I still get lost in Discord. I have so many. There's so many channels in there, and just playing around in there, my head spins. I think I'm still too old for that. So you gotta set up all your social channels, and you got to get somebody to manage it, right? And you probably want a good young guy, not somebody like me. You want somebody that's
my best suggestion suggestion, Ryan, is just switch it to dark mode so it looks like it's black and white and you kind of feel comfortable. Switch on the radio and it feels like Discord's talking to you. Just think you got a few more years of this. Oh, shit. Okay, cool. So, that was about Discord. And then also self-learning, guys. Also, besides reaching out to experts and people in the industry, sometimes you just can't get hold of them. Sometimes it's hard to reach out. They don't connect. So what do you have to do? You got to kind of read the self-help books, right? You got to research. You got to figure out, these articles, that articles. Google's a perfect platform, but Medium articles, Reddit, and then obviously speaking to a couple of your friends, they might put you on the right model or connect you with the right person through their network. So it's just because you have a blockage doesn't mean you stop. Keep pushing forward. Do what you can while you're trying to solve the problem, because there's hundreds of problems that we needed to solve for our projects, and if we had to stop every time, you'll never get done.
Yeah, absolutely. So probably going into we're just trying to figure out all the steps, right? And the next step is probably, and I guess this actually goes along
the most painful.
Yeah, this is definitely the most painful, but it goes along with the whole social media strategy and everything, but you just have to build out a marketing strategy, right? Just because you have a bunch of money, it doesn't mean you're going to be successful. So, you really have to, you got to spend a lot of time, build out that marketing strategy. You got to figure out your social media, like we said. you're going to have to network. You're going to have to network with lots of communities to try to get your name out there. And, that's one way to do it without spending a whole lot of money is, to get out there, get involved with a lot of other communities and network with them and bring your ideas to them. And then hopefully, they're willing to share your ideas with their community. And, another aspect of that marketing strategy is you're going to have to hire the right people. You're going to have to hire, moderators to be in all those social chats. You're going to need to hire people to, basically marketers, right? Is one kind of important aspect. You're going to need people that are out there, pushing your product. If you really want to grow and be successful, quickly. There's something to be said for grassroots efforts as well, which is basically, kind of building your community and letting them spread the word. That can be a good marketing strategy. And that kind of goes along with, you can kind of gamify the system is one way to do it, right? So you can gamify your marketing strategy in that maybe you're going to give some rewards if your community members go out there and spread the word about you. Super Oracles is a good example of that, where they'd had their little learn to earn project blast off, right? And they started it in a beta mode, and I believe they're from what I hear, I think they're getting ready to start again next week, where they're going to put that into the actual out there for the full project blast off rather than just the beta. And what they're doing is, you're telling friends about it, right? You get the more people you get to sign up for their blast off, the more people that go in there, sign up, and then start doing the little learn to earn model, the more tokens you get as a reward. So it's a cool little setup that they've got there, and you can apply that. Their Super Oracles is a huge project, but you can easily apply that to your own small little NFT project that you're building. There's a whole lot of ways, but you really need to set that marketing strategy, and of course it's going to be fluid. You're going to continue to build on it, but you really got to get that. You got to get that out there, and that's going to be a big part of your light paper and your pitch deck as well. Well, really your light paper, because you're really going to want to spell out how you're planning on marketing the project.
And the more people know about your project, the potential more success. I think Supra, they were just doing a private little, select few people only, And then they kind of shared the links, and it went. They actually the system broke after a few days, right? They had 150,000 signups, right? That is massive. And then of that, there's a KYC. KYC is when you have to authenticate that this is me, and you got to just shine your card and the validation. And they got, I think, close to 100,000 validations, if I stand corrected. Now in phase 2, Joshua, the CEO of Supra, believes they can get to 1 million. What does a community of 1 million people, think about this, right? And it's not financial advice, but what happens if half of them just spend $100 on purchasing Supra, right? What could the price be? How big could the project go? And then also, what happens if 1 million people know, or let's say half of those 1 million people know someone that can build on Supra, right, on their chain? And how big will that community grow, and the ecosystems? Can you see where we're going? So that's why marketing is so important. You've got to get the voice out, but not to, like, if we spend $10,000 shouting it out to my mates that aren't into crypto, they're going to look at you and like, this is a waste. This is cool, but this is a waste. You might get 1 or 2. It's the wrong audience. You got to point it in a direction where, you know, these are the people that I need to target, and this is why you need experts in that space.
Absolutely.
All right, and no matter what happens, you have to have skin in the game, all right? You got to learn. You got to learn to pivot, all right? You got to roll with the punches. You know, like any organization, any relationship, it's you got the honeymoon phase where, woo, we're going to make millions, all right? Then the hard work starts. It's exactly like getting married. Sometimes you accidentally get kicked in the balls a few times, all right? But you learn to kind of just roll over, play dead for a little bit, and then get up and start again, right? So it's like any business. You just have to have a mindset that, okay, we got a bit of a problem here. How do we solve it? Get a team meeting going, solve the problem, pivot. If this direction is not where we want to go, turn, change, learn, grow, talk to people, right? But the goal is keep going. You can't get to the middle of the Arctic Circle and say, well, I've had enough now. Don't quit because, you know, things have changed, right? So when we were building, we were building in a bull market. We're like, yeah, okay, cool. And then a bear market hit. You're like, oh, wow, okay. It's like you're in a desert looking for water, looking for people and stuff like that. And you're like, okay, what can I do to pivot? What can we do to incorporate new technologies? You don't stop. You keep going, right? A little bit slower, but you keep going. You don't just put it on the shelf and forget about it, because then basically it becomes old and obsolete. So you keep you actually have more time to refine. But I think the word is resilience, all right? When you start your project, people will come and go, but keep at it. Who knows what lies around the corner? Who knows that what you've created, if you might not feel it's good enough, or because you fear that it might be a failure, well, you haven't tried, you haven't released it. Who knows? Tomorrow you might wake up and your wallet is full or still empty, but the sun still shines, just not in Canada.
Yeah, right. Barely up here either, but
yeah,
man. So just don't quit. Failure's not an option, right? I mean, if you're committed to it, that's a lot of times that's what makes or breaks a project, how committed you are to it. So if you're going to do it and you're going to spend the time on it, then just remember that failure's not an option. You gotta see it through. So.
Exactly. And that kind of wraps up our NFT, some tidbits on how to start an NFT. It's not the complete guide, right? But it's a sure enough guide to get you started, to start thinking about the right things, and hopefully to be successful in the space. But when you do create something with purpose, create something that is of value to community. If you're going to create something to rug pull a community, or you're only going to want to make the money and not add value to someone else, all right, then you deserve to fail. It's as simple as that. But obviously have good intentions and let it be a partnership. If your community wins, right, and they feel you've added immense value and they've succeeded, remember, your community has trust. You can't buy that stuff. You can't buy trust, right? Which means when you start another project, all right, and the Bored Apes Yacht Club, those guys, anything they release now, all right, people are going to jump on it because they've built a trust mechanism and they'll hold true to it. So build with honor.
Absolutely.
All right, guys, and this is the part of the show where we've got Dad's Got Jokes, and it's a fun little segment we have where we try not to laugh, we try, and if we do laugh, we have to be punished with wine or beer or hardtack, because we're dads and we need it. So how we're going to go is, Ryan, you are going to say your dad joke first. Oh, you know what? Let's spin things up. I'm going to say the dad joke first, and then we're going to sell you down the river.
Sounds good. All right.
Did I say that out loud?
All right. Serious face on.
Okay. All right. Why do dads tell such corny jokes? They want you to grown up. Just jizzy as fuck. What? Was it? Is it? No, it's terrible.
All right, I've got a cheesy one for you too, right?
Okay, I'm looking forward to it.
Put on your serious face. Here you go. What do you call cheese that isn't yours? Nacho cheese.
That's the deliverance. Listen, what I'm saying out there, guys. We've got someone for a beer advert commercial. He doesn't want money. Just pay him in beer in kegs.
Oh, absolutely.
You're telling me that wasn't will for like I'll buy anything you want.
I always work for beer. I have no problem.
Yeah. Beer and Bitcoin. We work for B&B.
Oh, absolutely. That's perfect. Oh, great.
All right, guys, and that concludes our show for today. Thank you for joining us. We appreciate your time and you, and we'll look out for you. Look out for our next podcast coming out next Friday. Cheers for now.
See you guys.
The material and information presented in this recording are for entertainment purposes only. Do not misconstrue what you hear as investment or trading advice. Always do your own research. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed by the guests on this recording are their own and do not necessarily reflect those of Dad's Gone Crypto or its hosts.